No. 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 Yes. Good evening, mortals. It is time for another Kombat Time. Clearly, though, something different is happening this time. Because Mortal Kombat 1 is not the easiest game to make content of, thank you, YouTube. Just have to cut around everything. Partially inspired by Max's great design evolution series of Mortal Kombat characters, I have since wanted to do a Mortal Kombat game tier list ranking for a long time. This is Matt's Supreme MK game tier list featuring Kombat Time. So, we've all seen videos like this before. We are starting with the best of the best, the champion, spelt appropriately, of course, in the traditional Ed Boon style. Then we have just below that was Supreme Master. Master, tell the dreams that I've been after. Then we're moving down to Warrior, Novice, Mortal, and then Babality. I think that's strangely appropriate for the game that we're talking about, for the series that we are talking about, and we have 20 games to go through. I've included a few curveballs into this tier list because there are a number of Mortal Kombat releases that I consider unique, that have certain factors about them, certain gameplay elements, added characters and such, that I think they should be included in such a list. Bearing that in mind, I'm also not including. What's the opposite of including? Discluding. I'm also deciding not to put in every single port of every single Mortal Kombat game, because that's not that very fun. Have I played the R-Zone version of Mortal Kombat? Are we really ranking the Tiger Electronics version, the Barcods? No, we're doing none of that shit. That's just, I haven't played them. They would just go into the bottom, or would go into I didn't play. We're not doing that shit. Papa don't play like that. Nuh-uh. Nah. We're gonna try to do this somewhat, I guess, chronologically. Of course, starting with Mortal Kombat 1. Just stick it in the Warrior column for now. Row. What can you really say about this? It's terrible. You play it nowadays. I'm sorry. It's so slow. It's aged pretty poorly. I'd say it's aged worse than Street Fighter 2, but that doesn't mean, of course, that it doesn't have its fair share of really cool elements to it. Obviously, nostalgia plays a big part, but I really like the presentation and kind of vibes of Mortal Kombat 1. I still think those hold up. The announcer, obviously, is a lot more subtle than the Shao Kahns that we have and the Quan Chis and all the later announcer styles. I kind of like that. I love the mystique around fatalities and such, how they feel like band moves, and I love a lot of the backgrounds, again, are not that wild, but a lot of them are so classic. Obviously, the pit started there, some other things like Shang Tsung's throne room and such, and I think the starting cast is a little weak in the sense that it has one less controllable character, I should say, than Street Fighter 2, but I can't help but put this somewhere in the middle. I'm not sure if I've put on Warrior yet. Let's bring it down to Novice, I want to say. I think that sounds good right off the bat. I might move this around a little bit. I'm giving myself that freedom. I should be able to have that freedom. That's what mortal men and women defending their own world, having their own choice. That's what we're all about. So I feel comfortable right now with Mortal Kombat 1. I played a lot of the PC version back in the day, the IBM version, which is actually quite good. I think there's a Digital Foundry version video on Mortal Kombat 1, maybe the Mortal Kombat 1 and 2. And I remember that being highly rated because it had the blood, it had arcade, very close to arcade perfect graphics. Sound was a little eh. But yeah, that's where I cut a lot of my Mortal Kombat teeth on, my Baraka teeth. I never owned the Super Nintendo version. I only ever played it, that or the Genesis version. I only ever played that at friends' houses. The version I owned was the IBM version. So Mortal Kombat 1, feeling good about it being a Novice. Quite in the opposite of Mortal Kombat 1, I played MK2 like almost exclusively on the Super Nintendo for like a decade. I think I played the arcade version once or twice, but I was very, very happy with this version. I also played the Genesis version quite a bit at a friend's house, and we played that shit all night. It's a good time. If any of you out there have memories of like, oh, I was playing Mortal Kombat until like 4 a.m. with friends, you grew up well. You had a full-bodied childhood experience, essentially. Mortal Kombat 2, it obviously has to be above Mortal Kombat 1. That's not even up for debate. But obviously the step up in characters, the like huge boost in like graphical fidelity in terms of like the backgrounds and making everything feel like a cohesive world, how crazy Outworld looked in comparison to like Mortal Kombat 1. Obviously the game was a bit faster, it had more fatalities, more, you know, finishers in general. I think I also like the music a bit better. Like across the board, I don't think there's anything that it does that isn't 1,000 times better than Mortal Kombat 1. So I think Warrior just above is a little low. The commercial, Love Mortal Monday commercial for Mortal Kombat 1, the Batista one isn't so hot. The Mortal Kombat 2 commercial was all-timer, fucking goated for life. That's what I wanted a Mortal Kombat movie to look like. We didn't quite get there, but that commercial though, bruh, it was the sickest shit. So a lot of good memories with this particular one. The intro, the logo, just everything about it. I feel comfortable putting it in Supreme Master. Maybe not Campion, maybe not quite there yet, but I might move it there depending on the rest of the games. I know this might be controversial that it's not already at the top of the list, but that's what I'm feeling right now. All right, Mortal Kombat 3. I actually have a lot of good memories from Mortal Kombat 3, maybe more than Mortal Kombat 1 at the very least. I was hyped as shit for this because 1995, talked about this in a few videos in the past, was like a massive year for Mortal Kombat. It had The Journey Begins, the animated movie, which was dog shit of course, but I can't help but not love it. The Mortal Kombat movie premiered that year, obviously hyped out of my mind. I remember watching Saturday Night Live and there'd be commercials from the Mortal Kombat movie, and I was like, oh my god, it's coming out this Friday, yo! And Mortal Kombat 3 was a big part of that. I saw the sketches from Tobias and like EGMs. I was like, wow, the characters sure look different. That's a different Sub-Zero. Striker? Oh, okay. I'm sure they know what they're doing. I did own a very, very similar version a little bit later. We'll talk about it, of course. But MK3, even though a lot of people kind of consider this a bit of like a step back, I mean, it wasn't compared to Mortal Kombat 2. I think in the overall package, just because of the gameplay, the run button, the dial combos, just how much more you could juggle, I think that still kind of edges out MK2 in terms of gameplay. Now, will my nostalgia of MK2 still trump MK3? I want to say probably, maybe. But still, Shiva, Nightwolf, I like this version of Shang Tsung better. Motaro, love Motaro is, as much as I love Kintaro from MK2. Yeah, I don't know about that. There's a few little things where I'm like, oh, I wish Raiden was in it, I wish Johnny Cage was in it. Obviously, actors, beef with Midway management at the time prevented that. So there's a couple of things that's like not its fault, you know? I can't fault them. Could they have recast it with other actors? We'll talk about it later. But yeah, they could have done that. We could have gotten those characters still in there. But Sonya came back and Kano. Still though, with all that said, it's like super close. Do I feel like I want to put that above, at the same level as Mortal Kombat 2? No, I don't. I don't. As all the hype that I just told you about, I don't know if I can actually do that. But I think Master is good for now. But will it work for our next game? Now it says right here, Ultimate MK3, the Ultimate Fighting. It says it right on the box. So this one is actually very, very special to me because this is one of the very few Super Nintendo games I could actually afford to eventually purchase for myself. Had very little money growing up to spend on video games. I was a big renter. I think we've probably already established that, right? Ultimate MK3 was the one where it's like, oh my god, that's still coming out for the Super Nintendo. I kind of thought like 16-bit systems, MK was done. Like it was after MK3 came out on the PlayStation, I was just like, oh, it's never coming back to 16-bit systems. But then this monster whopper of a fighting game with so many more characters, ones that weren't even in the Ultimate MK3 for the arcade, Noob Saibot and Rain. I consider this an MK3, like Ultimate MK3 in the arcade, to be pretty interchangeable. I'm like kind of grouping this all together as like one Ultimate MK3, the home versions and the arcade. This with Scorpion, Reptile, Ermac, Katana Melina all added in there, and then Rain and Noob Saibot put on top of that. All the codes you could, in the home version, you could select Motaro and Shao Kahn. Love that shit. The cheats in general were really dope in this particular home version of the game. I do feel comfortable putting this on Supreme Master alongside MK2. My fervor for MK was a little bit less by this point. When did this come out? I want to say this came out in 96 or 97. Mortal Kombat Annihilation came out a little bit later, like later in the year, like November 1997, I want to say. And that's when it took obvious a beating, you know, love for Mortal Kombat, because that movie was that movie. Suckers! But right now, I think that's good. 2 Supreme Masters makes sense to me. There's usually 2 bosses at the end of every MK game. A main boss and a sub-boss. I think that makes sense for now. Will another one get added here? Perhaps, maybe, mortals. We're just gonna have to watch and see. Now, of course, here we have MK Trilogy. As a dumb baby Matthew child, I used to call this, this is the first time I ever saw the word trilogy. I remember this distinctly. I had no idea how to say it. I thought it was called triology, which makes no fucking sense. The L is not even where that would be if you were to say it. So for a couple of years, embarrassingly, I want to say, if anyone's watched my videos, you know this to be true, that I said this wrong for like a couple of years, but you know, it's fine. I played the N64 version obviously a lot. I did not have the PlayStation version, which was the better version. I think competitive wise, the N64 version was played more, but the version for the PlayStation had the extra MK1 and MK2 character variations. So you had, you know, MK2 Kung Lao, you had MK2 Raiden, stuff like that. Obviously, they added Johnny Cage. This was essentially the Mortal Kombat Armageddon of bringing every single character in there. Obviously, Chameleon was added, which was pretty cool. I remember being hyped for Chameleon, even though I had no idea what the character was until I finally sat down and played this version. The N64, sadly, I have memories of it just being so muffled and garbled sound-wise, so that kind of puts it down a little bit. For that reason, and I really don't like the aggressor system, I think that was so pointless. It's not that fun to use, and just, I almost kind of want to put this downwards a little bit. I don't know why. I think this was a cool logo. It looked cool, but it just by the time Trilogy came out, I was kind of like, all right, we already had a game that had a ton of fucking characters, and the little additions they put into this was like not enough. Like Chameleon was literally the only new character. Midway Management really hated Daniel Pesina, to the point where it's like, we're not even you going to put in his old sprite. We're going to cast a whole new dude. I don't know. This has nostalgia, and this was kind of like a little bit of a step back from Mortal Kombat for me, like just in terms of the overall package, how I was feeling about the time, the vibes in the air. I'm gonna put that down to Warrior. That's crazy, I know. This was like pure, almost the hype of that summer, MK3, all the other Mortal Kombat related things going on there. I know that's like stuff on the outside, the stuff that's orbiting Mortal Kombat 3, but how am I supposed to separate that, right? How am I supposed to separate that? Can you? No, you can't. And if you can for this, there's probably other things that you can't, right? So, you know, this is the Super Turbo Dash Rainbow edition of Mortal Kombat, where I'm like, okay, it's getting a little bit long in the tooth. This is technically the third version of the base game being MK3. So I kind of needed to put it lower for that reason. I hope you understand. All right, next up, MK4. When I finally got my N64, this was an eventual purchase. I think I purchased this from some kid that was a couple blocks down from me. Not even a kid, it was like a full-grown adult. And he put an ad out in a newspaper. Remember those? And essentially it was like, I'm selling a bunch of N64 games. I hate my N64. No, he's like, I think you were like, I have no use for it anymore, whatever that means. So I stopped by and I had an N64, but it had a bunch of games. Like, it's where I got most of my games. He had like 7 games. So I got them all for like $150, something like that. And MK4 was one of them. I never saw this in the arcade ever. So I never played it, but I read a lot about it. I read the old GamePro article where Ed Boon was talking about digital skin, and this is not related to War Gods at all. Shut up. Yeah, when you actually play this, it's always fun for like the first 30 minutes. Then, you know, maximum damage starts kicking in. The end boss is super lame. There's no sub-boss anymore. Just Shinnok, and Shinnok's playable, so he doesn't have the mystique of like Shao Kahn. His special moves are just everyone else's special moves. Like, there's a lot to dislike here compared to the other ones. They got rid of a lot of old characters, brought in a bunch of new ones that, you know, in my view, most of them haven't really stood the test of time. Who's never been back? Jarek and Kai. They've been back in Armageddon, but that doesn't count, right? That doesn't count. So MK4 is like a weird one for me. I can't put it below MK1 though. You know what? Yeah. I think that makes sense right now because at least I had some fresh ideas versus MK Triology. Oh, I'm sure that's making people mad already. So yeah, I did think that the home ports of this were better because it added Goro. Sorry, I forgot about that. The home ports added Goro as a sub-boss. He was not in the arcade version, at least the initial arcade versions. Maybe there was a revision that added him in. And of course, we cannot forget MK4's endings.
Wait, this is brutality. You can't do it. Wrong, Jarek. This is not a brutality. This is a fatality.
So, because of the endings, mostly, the continue screen when you're falling down the pit, you can't underestimate the fact that this introduced styles, weapon fighting styles into the game, which was, you know, obviously going to be a thing later on. So yeah, MK4, that's where you be and that's where you shall stay. Gold, though, I hated Gold as a kid because I did not own a Dreamcast. I rented a Dreamcast once or twice, and I was super pissed that this was exclusive to the Dreamcast for a while just because I couldn't play it or play it easily. Now, here's the thing. All of the extra stuff that's in MK4 Gold, right, or just Mortal Kombat Gold, right, it's a bunch of characters. It's Kung Lao, Baraka, Melina, Katana, I believe. A couple new stages. Oh, sorry, Sector and Cyrax, too. That's a lot of extra characters. Technically, mathematically, this should make it better than MK4. I don't know if it actually is, because all those characters are, like, steaming garbage. Like, Sector is incredibly broken. All of the fatalities and moves are, like, even jankier animation. None of it's very good. You can see a lot of cobbled together things. Like Eurocom that ported this did it without the core Midway team that worked on MK4. I think they supervised it at the very least, but they had to make a lot of stuff out of whatever animations and things they had lying around from Mortal Kombat 4 vanilla. You know what? With those disadvantages and advantages and my nostalgia being biased against MK Gold, I don't think it makes it better or worse than MK4. I think just by that measure alone, it's on the same level. I don't hate it more than MK4 Gold, but I don't think it's better than it. So yeah, I would really love it if MK4 would get its time to shine, get a re-release or something, and put Gold along with it. People would buy that. Where's the arcade one-up? At least an arcade one-up, at the very fucking least. All right, here we go. Some more hilarity with Mortal Kombat Mythologies Sub-Zero. This was released the same year, I think, as MK4. I think maybe a few months before or after. This is a tough one, obviously, because it's not a fighting game, but it's a mainline, well, it's a spinoff, but it is made by Midway, and it is a Mortal Kombat game. It says it right there. It's got a dragon logo right fucking there. So even though it's hard to compare these with fighting games, you still have to kind of do it. And that's Immortal almost right away. This game is awful, right? It's very frustrating to play. It's very short if you kind of know what you're doing. The game has cheats where you have an infinite lives, so you kind of have to be forced to play it, but it's so not fun. But it's that frustrating kind of no fun that's still better than boring. You know what? Because of that and the cutscenes, I'm thinking back to all the FMV cutscenes of the actors. No. Maybe. So I'm thinking about how much pleasure I get from watching Mr. G-Star321's playthrough of Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, and the fact I've talked with Josh, who is one of the main designers, artists that worked on this game, and they did that What Happened episode, that I kind of found a slightly new appreciation. No, people will be pissed if I put it here. No, okay. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yes. I think Mortal is too low. I think Mortal is like, Babality is like bottom tier, and it's not bottom tier. And Mortal feels like more, this is the boring category to me. Like, this is the kind of nothing. Speaking of kind of nothing, MK Special Forces. Now, the thing with this game is that its prototype version that was worked on first actually looks awesome. It's so much better than what we wound up getting, that it makes this version that much worse. The fact that it was more of a third-person shooter, and you were like Sonya and Jax, and had a different camera angle that's more like Siphon Filter, it makes this all the more worse and repellent, really. Because every time I play this, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna really give this a go, and it's just the most boring nothing game ever that barely feels like Mortal Kombat. Like, I know it's got like fatalities, I guess, and little combos. If you change the names around from some of these characters, like, that's all that really changes. Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero, on the other hand, even though it's very different, its combat system is still distinctly Mortal Kombat. The digitized characters are still distinctly Mortal Kombat. So you can't say that about Special Forces. The only thing I can give it is the fact that Tremor was introduced in it, and is the fact of the intro. If this had, right, stay with me on this, if this had more FMVs like MK Mythology Sub-Zero did, if you had actors dressed up as these characters talking bollocks in front of CGI backgrounds, that would have been something special. That would move this up. But no, I don't. You know what? Babality. You know what? Yeah. Because of those reasons I just cited, the fact that it lacks that, the fact that the first version of the game, I believe there's YouTube footage out there. All of this, I think that's the lowest, because I do not have fun. I don't have, this is so bad it's good fun. I do have it's so bad it's good fun with MK Mythology Sub-Zero. But I don't with Special Forces. So you can dance around in your intro all you want, Jax. It's not going to change my mind. Someone has to be at the low tier too. And I feel the most comfortable right now with poor Jackson Briggs and his memories of being a fat little boy at school. I feel you, bro. I feel you. I know what that's like. But this is where you got to be, you little whittle baby. All right, we got MK Deadly Alliance. It's also known sometimes as MK5 because of this gigantic V right here. So, truth be told, I was massively hyped for this. I was like, Mortal Kombat's back, baby. No more arcades holding it back. We're on the PS2 now. Tons of storage space. Do whatever you want. I was on mk5.org back in the day. I was making fucking fan art. I was fucking back in. I was so hyped for this, and I did buy this on release on the GameCube. I think it was on the GameCube or the PS2. But I bought this, and I played the hell out of it. And then once I played the hell out of it, I was like, this is kind of bad. right? I even made an AMV music video with with Cinder's music from KI, but I just had like gameplay footage and CGI footage. There's a couple of things, right? It was complete lack of finishers, only one fatality per character, and that was it. Like, that's a record low. Let's just put that down to novice right now, just for that, right? We might move it up somewhere as I talk. Hated Moloch, right? I'm fine with Drummond. I will defend Drummond, but I hated Moloch as a sub-boss. Sub-bosses are always kind of like almost the coolest ones. Deadly Alliance are fine. They're a good team. They're a good team. But Moloch is just so lame. Just like a blue, I don't even know what to call him. A blue troll? It was just a huge step back from all the Shokans and the Centaurs and such. Also, it's hard when it's like, you know that the 3D era has much better entries than this. So I know that's not exactly fair, but we're looking back on it now, right? This is a mix of nostalgia and looking back on these games with 2023 eyes. So, no, okay. The conquest mode is obviously, you play that nowadays and that's really rough. It's just a glorified tutorial. This did establish those arcade endings for Mortal Kombat characters were done with the narrated voice and the images that have all these wild scenarios. I have to give it props for that. There's so many other characters in there that like I hate. I defend Drummond, but I can't stand Movado. I can't stand Shu Hao and the rest. I forget. Nitara, I guess. Li Mei obviously has her time to shine. We'll see if Nitara pops up in MK1. She's probably going to be announced by the time you guys see this. So yeah, there's that. Yeah, I feel okay about Warrior right now. Novice is a bit too low. So now we have the GOAT of the 3D era, MK Deception. Mortal Kombat Deception, because Shujinko's a fucking fool that got decepted really, really hard. Automatically, no, it cannot. It has to be above Deadly Alliance. It has to. Has to be above MK4. So, 2 fatalities each. Pits. Death traps. Shitloads of them. I had so much fun back in the day, like finding them all. Harakiris. The Conquest mode. I played the hell out of that as a kid. I think I unlocked almost everything. I got everything in the Crypt. I did love the Crypt. The Crypt was established in MK Deadly Alliance, but Deception had way more dumb shit. I can't remember if Cooking from Scorpion came from Deadly Alliance or it came from Deception. Doesn't matter. Of the 3D era, it's the best one. And when I go back to it, even though I give it shit for a lot of things, it still plays clunky. All of its extras, like even though I'm not the biggest fan of chess combat, puzzle combat's still really good. And just the amount of work that they put into it. The changes to the roster are also, I think, for the better in general. Yeah. So you know what the problem is? Is that when I look alongside Ultimate MK3 and MK2, I can't. I don't think I can actually have that. No, you know what? No, I changed my mind. I think that's better. But now I feel weird about MK Gold being here. I think this is good for Deception, actually, because it can't be Supreme Master. Inherently, when I go back to the 3D games, I still don't like the way that they play. I remember not liking them a ton back in the day. Thought they were fine, but the style systems and stuff, I didn't care. Like, I barely used it that much. I just wanted it to play like traditional Mortal Kombat. I'd do the special moves, I'd do some of my favorite combos, but I wouldn't switch styles that much. The bosses, obviously this goes above MK Deadly Alliance because of the bosses. Just because I think it was the Deadly Alliance where the sub-boss, Noob Smoke, obviously, super cool. And now I feel like maybe actually dropping, no. Okay, sorry to be so indecisive there, but this is actually really hard for them. As tier lists usually go on, they get harder, right? But let's keep this for now. MK Deception, no matter what, it's the GOAT 3D game, I think. And before we move on with that 3D era, I did want to give a special shout out to Mortal Kombat Tournament Edition, in the fact that this isn't exactly a port of Deadly Alliance or Deception, and this has some extra things in it. So this is the GBA exclusive, like, I guess, Turbo Edition of Deadly Alliance. That was the Deadly Alliance port that was on the GBA, which inherently played very different. It looked amazing on the GBA, I still feel. And this is the one that it cuts a few characters out, but adds a brand new character in, Serena, who is now back in vogue, partially as a cameo in MK1. So this is the game that established her as a tournament viable, like, character that's actually fighting in the tournament. She was originally from Mortal Kombat Sub-Zero, but here she is playable for the first time. And I think, and this coupled with the way that the GBA version plays, I think this is one of those unique editions of Mortal Kombat that I did want to give a shout out to, because I think it just kind of stands on its own. The fact that it's named something different really helps that in regards to, you know, being amongst all of its peers. So I think maybe there. Yeah, it can't be as good as Deadly Alliance just because it plays a lot slower. It is impressive for it being on the GBA. Honestly, almost Mortal maybe? No, I think that's a little too low. I think that might be a little too low. Let's drop down Mortal Kombat 1 to Mortal and this Novice. You know what? We might do that. We might do that. We also have another version that's pretty unique. This is Mortal Kombat Unchained for the PSP. The reason why we're talking about this is that it's essentially everything that was in Deception and more, with added things and like quality of life improvements. First and foremost, all characters are unlocked from the start. You have to unlock a bunch in Deception when you start up on a fresh memory card. The other thing is that it adds back in characters that were taken out from Deadly Alliance in the switch to Deception. Blaze, Frost, Kitana, and Jax. That's so weird. I think it's because they're able to shift around all the fighting styles and weapon styles, and that was the combination that made sense. So that means no Johnny Cage and no Sonya. So I think that, coupled with all the other features from Deception, that has to make it better than Deception, but because it's on the PSP, because it probably doesn't, you know, I think it keeps it on the same level. But it is cool that PSP users got that. As for another version of Mortal Kombat that was released exclusively on portables, I have to talk about Ultimate Mortal Kombat. Some of you may not remember this, but this is a Nintendo DS exclusive. And what this was essentially 2 games in one. You got a pretty impressive arcade port of Ultimate MK3 on the go that looks, you know, way better than MK Advance. I can't honestly do MK Advance. It's just a very basic bones port of Mortal Kombat, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3. I just couldn't. I was just like, what am I going to do? It's just going to be at the bottom thing. It's just a port. It's a lazy port at that. I want to stop talking about MK Advance. I already done a whole video on it, but Ultimate Mortal Kombat, I feel, is a unique enough release because it has that, you know, fairly for the DS arcade accurate port of UMK3, but it also has puzzle combat from Deception added in there because that works well for a portable game, right? I mean, I love playing puzzle games on the DS of all things. It just worked with the touchscreen interface and stuff. So the fact that this has a really good port of a really good fighting game, and it has a good, neat port of a mini game from Deception, I just think that's really neat. I think Warrior might be good. I think Warrior might be, yeah, that is better than MK Tournament Edition. So if you ever want to emulate, or if you have your DS and still want hard copies, do search this out because I think it's a really neat release that no one ever talks about anymore. I'm not even sure if Ketchup and Mustard talk about this. And if they don't, they should. We're still in the realm of 2005, and that means it's time to talk about Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks. That's Supreme Master. That's not up for debate. You might think it's up for debate. It's not. It is probably the best spin-off of any fighting game ever made. There's not a whole lot of them, to be fair, of course, but it absolutely is and should be there. I remember playing the hell out of this, trying to unlock everything, all the little coins that are hidden. Couldn't get everything in one go. Its versus mode is super good. You're probably going to see an episode of Triple KO where I like splooge all over that versus mode. All the unlockable characters, the fact that you can play with Sub-Zero and Scorpion is just so awesome. The smoke missions that lets you unlock a admittedly pretty bad port of MK2 Arcade. For those that don't know, and you should, MK Shaolin Monks is basically a beat-em-up action game take on MK1 and MK2, mostly MK2. It just retells that part of the timeline with like co-op brawling that's really fun. The only thing I can really say against it, some of its levels in the later sections are more complicated than they really need to be, and that you basically unlock anything that's useful like well before the end of the game. But yeah, Mortal Kombat Shaolin Monks, I still have no idea why Warner Brothers just refuses to re-release this. I don't know why. Why, Ed Boon, do you constantly tease every 3 or 4 years that you're going to release an update, a remaster, a port, whatever it is, and just it never happens? Like, this thing still has aged incredibly well. It's very fluid to play. Combat feels good. There's like insanely good co-op mode. If this got re-released just as a HD port with online, like, instant buy. It should be an instant buy for any of you out there as well. I don't know how Paradox Entertainment nailed Mortal Kombat so well from day fucking one and like transferring it to an adventure action beat 'em up thing. Like, they did a phenomenal job, and it sucks that this is still stuck back on old systems and is, and, you know, it's harder to play than for some people than it should be, because it's an absolute gem, deserves a re-release. So that's why it is a Supreme Master. No. Yeah, no, I feel confident on Supreme Master on that one. Mortal Kombat Armageddon. This is going to be a complicated one. On a lot of levels, it is better than Mortal Kombat Deadly Alliance, but it's not as good as Deception. And for any of you out there that doesn't know, but you should, because they needed to spread out all the motion capture data they had for martial arts styles, they had to separate that and cut that down to all the other characters. So a lot of the characters play very similarly. They have one hand-to-hand fighting style and one weapon fighting style, and a lot of them are really similar, especially the weapon fighting styles. It's just you're swinging around just a bladed weapon, and it doesn't get like how much different is a katana versus 2 katanas or whatever. Fatalities, also a huge step back in the creative fatality system. I hate that thing. I never liked it. What I do give it credit for, though, is I still love the Conquest mode. Is it as deep or as long as the one in Deception? No, but it plays a little better, and it's more unique in the sense that it's just a 3D beat 'em up thing. And motor combat is still a good time for a little bit, so I have to give it props for that. What I can't give it props for is this kind of lame final boss in Blaze, and the fact you get shit endings, like absolute garbo endings compared to the ones in MK Deadly Alliance and the ones in Deception. Then Warriors Where It Shall Stay, I cannot rate that lower than Deadly Alliance. Like, I just can't. The amount of characters, you know, some additions to the core combat systems like air combat, there's still like stage fatalities, and just the extra modes, like I already mentioned. Yeah, I can't go down to novice. That's way too low. You can see how much ambition they had, but they like, it had to be like bottled ambition. They're like, we're going to put every single character ever, remake them all in 3D, but no one gets fatalities, and everyone has like a limited moveset, and so on and so forth. So yeah, that feels good to me. So we're getting there, folks. MK versus DC Universe, MK8 as it's known sometimes. That is Immortal. I really hate this game, right? I know some people love it. Oh, I had really good memories of playing it when I was 12. I really liked the DC characters. Like, I just hated this because, again, it's not what we were promised. If you've seen the What Happened episode about this, Ed Boon and the Mortal Kombat team were all going to make just a brand new standalone Mortal Kombat game that was going to be really violent and dark. And then at the last second, the Warner Brothers and DC deal came through, and they're like, well, let's just do this instead. let's just do that. It's like not what I wanted. All VC is trying to ape on the success Capcom had with Marvel, and it's just a bad plain fighting game. I hate all the fatalities. I hate the heroic brutalities. They are so lame and lazy. It's just the way I feel. There are some ideas, obviously, that spawn into greater things. The Injustice games never would have sprung from this. You know, the cinematic story mode, that was first done in this. In the traditional way that we know it, this is the game that established that. Where you just watched cutscenes and then just did fights. You could say that, oh, that started in Deception, or, you know, that started in Armageddon. No, it really started here. But you look at this game now, a lot of the designs I don't like. The fact that they're all the most bog standard versions of the DC heroes, and they don't have any cool costumes. They're just exactly what they look like in the 70s or 80s or whatever, and they didn't have cool Mortal Kombat versions of themselves, like obviously would come later in Injustice and such like that, and or guest spots in other games in the example of the Joker. But that all of those good points does not make this game play well. The pro moves, the awkwardness of the 3D like sort of sidestepping thing, but it's still like a locked 2D game. And really, there really isn't much content to play through the game as well. Like, it was such a step back from Armageddon and Deception. The cinematic story mode, sure, but that was over in like, 3 hours at most. And this game never got any DLC. That was all canceled too. I can't put that against this game, obviously, because Midway died, so it's not really the fault, but I still really hate this game. I really like the box art. I love the special edition box art. It has the Alex Ross painted versions. I think that's really cool. But yeah, it every time I start this up again, I was like, why does it gotta play like this? Like, I prefer the 3D games a little bit. At least they're consistent in how they play. This just feels bad, man. I will say, because of the success of MK vs. DC relative to Mortal Kombat games, it did sell like over 1 million copies. That made a good impression on Warner Brothers. Therefore, they were able to save the Mortal Kombat IP. That led us, of course, to MK 2011, MK9, and Mortal Kombat, whatever you want to fucking call it. This was very similar to Deadly Alliance for me, where I was back in, baby. Yeah, it's in my blood. I was screaming it again. I was just all in, baby. Hashtag all in to Mortal Kombat again. When I went back for this on a Kombat Time episode on the Main Map My Muscles channel, I was like, it's janky. Its animations and character models look worse than the games that came after it. But I can't help but still love this game. It has an incredible roster. It still has, perhaps until Mortal Kombat 1 comes out and I actually get to go hands-on, it still has the best cinematic story mode where it goes through every single character, tons of awesome set pieces, everyone gets a time to shine. I feel like for their station in life is treated for the most part fairly. You can't say that about some of the other cinematic story modes that happen later. And there's so much to actually chew through in terms of its combat mechanics. Like, it was the first one that made me go, oh man, my god, now I can actually play Mortal Kombat. Look how much different this character is from this character, and you can do this with this one. And the, Test Your Mights were back. Of course, the DLC characters were really sick. It was like the first actual DLC characters for a Mortal Kombat game, and I love Scarlet. I thought Freddy was weird, I'm not gonna lie. I was pissed that PlayStation 3 owners got Kratos because they still love Kratos, but did not have a PS3 at that time. So I was kind of like grinding my teeth that I was, being barred from playing as an extra character, and the Xbox 360 version got nothing. I always felt that the way Namco did it with Soul Calibur 2 is the best. But when you saw the first fatalities of this game, and they're so quaint, like they're cute, they're hilarious. You look at them nowadays, when you saw this on YouTube in 2011 back in the day, you lost your fucking mind. There's never been anything more violent than that in a video game. It was incredible. It's a real time capsule of 2011. So I just have this in novice for now, just because I'm talking about it. But Supreme Master, that's not Campion, but Supreme Master? Yeah, okay, no, Supreme Master for MK9. I feel that you have earned your Supreme Master spot. I would love this game to get re-released and look a little better on modern consoles nowadays. That'd be sick. Re-release all the Warner Brothers era, new era games, I think, and like a triple pack or something. I think that would be cool. But yeah, feeling good about that. So MKX. I was like not hankering for a new MK that bad by the time this rolled around. There was like fighting games were booming back again, so there was plenty to play. But upon closer reflection and thinking about everything else that MKX did, like it's the darkest looking Mortal Kombat in terms of like colors and character costumes. It had another really good roster. Was it as good as MK9's roster? Probably not. You know, there's some characters in its roster I didn't really care for. Ferrator was definitely one. But overall, coupled with the DLC, coupled with Leatherface, Xenomorph Alien, Predator, Jason, I played a shitload of this for quite a while. That I was starting to hanker for more Mortal Kombat because it had been quite a few years at that point. Be a 6-year gap, I think. The cinematic story mode, is it as good as MK9's? No, I don't think so. I think it's actually a step back in a few ways. It was shorter. A lot of cool characters get jobbed out. Fucking Kotal Khan gets jobbed the fuck out. Aside from that, I don't remember it that much. I remember that. But the whole Shinnok thing, the whole Johnny Cage thing, where Johnny Cage is now the main character for some reason. I love Johnny, don't get me wrong. But the cinematic story mode was a bit of a letdown. I did, however, really love the Crypt. I did, however, love playing this online. The faction stuff, take it or leave it. Wasn't really a fan of it. A lot of the fatalities, I think many of them stand the test of time. They're still like impressive. There's some that are lame. There's some moments like, that's whatever. But at the time, and there's still some bangers in there. Remember Quan Chi's, don't show it. Do not cut to a clip of it. A lot of it is the DLC. A lot of it. It does like the most heavy lifting of pretty much any game that we've covered so far. So MKX right now, to me, especially when we talk to the game that's after it, it was kind of like the apex of a lot of things coming together. Nostalgia for MK, nostalgia for a lot of those DLC characters. You couldn't believe that they were in a Mortal Kombat game. It was such a step up from MK9 in that way. Overall character models and character design was better than MK9's. I love all the new stages too. I love those stage interactions where you had all those hidden fatalities and shit. And then Deadwood and throwing Blanche. Like, there's so much in MKX. And MKXL, the version with all the DLC in, should be re-released. Like, that should be on PS5 and Xbox One. Maybe it still is. You know what? Fuck what I just said. Maybe it still is. But right now, the Campion, the champion, MKX, you're still the one to me, because it has a lot of the nostalgia that I have from Mortal Kombat 2 a little bit. It's so much darker, it's more insidious, it's like violent, there's like a mystery to it a little bit. Did I care for easy token fatalities and having to pay for that? Or, all those little monetization things Warner Brothers did? No, not really, but that wasn't really the MK team's choice, I'd like to think. I think Max and Justin would agree. We literally sucked this game's dick like on every other episode of TKO. So here we are at the end of all things, MK11. This is obviously a controversial one, and it's one that's going to probably be the hardest, or one of the hardest to place, because MK11 has so much good shit in it, and it has so much shit I do not care for. Obviously, of the games that are released, and still, it might still look a little better than MK1. I haven't really decided on that. It just kind of depends. I need to play MK1 a little bit more. It's the best looking of the bunch by far. It's probably one of the best looking fighting games ever made, really. Just the huge strides that the MK team made with facial animation and modeling, motion capture, the stages, all of that looks godlike, right? I really like the way the new HUD looked, but I didn't really care for the offense-defense way that the meters are divvied up to, right? I love the general plot of the story mode. It still has that same problem as MKX. Some characters get jobbed out. They do things with certain others, but I mean, that's the price you pay when getting invested in a narrative, right? There's gonna be choices you're not gonna like. The crit mode was the coolest crit mode ever. I was so addicted to that until I became unaddicted to that. I thought that was so cool the way it's set up and the lore. Getting the actor that played Shang Tsung from the MK95 movie back in there, that was an inspired choice.
Your soul is mine.
When you add the Aftermath DLC campaign into the cinematic story mode, I think just by how much stuff that happens, how good it looks, then it's more or less on par with MK9's. I think it's better than MKX's, the cinematic story mode, I should say, right? All the DLC characters, they did not quite hit for me the same way as MKX did. I love Terminator, RoboCop, Rambo, Spawn, obviously, but I don't love them quite as much as Xenomorph, Jason, and Predator, and Leatherface too, to a smaller degree. It's the grind that really killed this for me, and that ties into the crit mode. Like, I hated that after a while. I just saw the amount of currencies, the amount it had to make numbers go up. The gear system, I did not like. I liked it in theory of like, I want to get gear pieces, but the grind for that was outrageous. I hated it. When I went back to play it, once they had overhauled it a little bit, I still didn't like it. I just want to grind for skins, not pieces of skins, right? So thankfully they seem to have stopped that in MK1 right now, I think. we shall see. So there's all that stuff. There's the gameplay. I was relatively fine with MK1's core gameplay. It's a slower based footsie game. Did I like it as much as MKX's variation system? No, I didn't. I liked it a little bit less. The reliance on crushing blows, all that stuff. I played it online very little. I just wasn't having that much fun. But I still love going through the cinematic story mode. I still loved going through the arcade ladders. I still had a really good time. It's mostly how good the game looks, and a lot of the DLC characters added a lot, and the Aftermath campaign, right? But I don't think I can put that on Supreme Master, because there's more flaws in this than there is in MK9, than there is in this, and these two. Like MK2, objectively at the time, if you're into Mortal Kombat and released in 93, it's almost flawless, right? This is almost flawless, but it's just the cinematic story mode, really. I think that might be Master. I think that looks good to me. I think that looks good. I don't think there's two champions. I really don't. These Mortal Kombat 2, as much as I love it, and I'm saying it's flawless, just the amount of content in MKX just edges that out. Otherwise, I would put that up there, but I don't think I logically can. Just the AI of Mortal Kombat 2 kind of holds it. It will always hold it back from being the champion, right? So I'm feeling this is complete right now. No more games. There's only save or download. But yeah, that might be my Supreme Mortal Kombat tier list. Obviously, we won't really know where MK1 lands until months, if not years later. I want to say everything I've seen about that game with the invasions mode, how unlocks work, how there just seems to be one currency in the game, just coins. And I'm hopeful for that to really deliver. The first wave of DLC, I could take it or leave it, honestly. I don't know where that will end up in the future. I want that to get up to Supreme Master. Do I think it will get up to Champion? No, because I don't like the cameo system as much as the variation system. I just don't. We shall see. Maybe we can do some other type of Mortal Kombat tier list in the future, and I can just do a quick update on where MK1 lies. But let me know in the comments, flame me for these bad takes or good takes or lukewarm takes, whatever they may be. Everyone's tier list is always going to be different. There's never going to be an exact clone. But I'm feeling good about this, especially on the Babality and the champion levels. I think that's appropriate for me In the middle, it's always going to be different. But let me know what you thought of this tier list in the comments. If you'd like to see me do more of these, I know lots of people do them, but I very, very rarely do them. I think I did a Godzilla one years and years ago, back in 2019. But yeah, give me some feedback if you'd like to see more for fighting games, beat 'em ups, whatever you'd like. I'm always down if you guys want to see that. But I hope you enjoyed this bone-crunching, fatality-having episode of Kombat Time.